Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code Your English, the channel that helps you speak English with more confidence, more clarity, and more joy, one episode at a time. If this is your first time listening, I want to say a very warm welcome to you, and if you have been with us for a while, thank you so much for coming back again. Every single time you press play, you are choosing to grow, and that is something worth celebrating. So before we start, take a deep breath, get comfortable, maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee, and let's begin today's journey together. Today, I want to start with a few questions, and I want you to really think about them, not just read them quickly. Have you ever known a word, a simple word, a word you have used 100 times before, and then suddenly, in the middle of a conversation, it just disappears? Your mind becomes empty, like a blank page, and you sit there, searching, but nothing comes. Has this ever happened to you? Does your brain sometimes freeze when you are speaking with someone, especially when that person is looking at you, waiting for your answer? And here's the most painful part. Do you remember the word only after the conversation is finished? When it is too late? When the other person has already walked away? Have you ever felt embarrassed? Maybe even a little ashamed, because you could not remember a word that felt so simple, so basic? A word a child could say without thinking? If your answer to any of these questions is yes, I want you to take a deep breath right now, and I want you to listen to me carefully. You are not alone. This happens to almost every single English learner on this planet. It happens to people who have studied for 1 year, and it happens to people who have studied for 20 years. It is not a sign that you are weak, or slow, or bad at languages. It is simply part of the journey, and today, we are going to talk about it honestly, deeply, and practically. This episode is not only about memory. It is about something much bigger than that. It is about your confidence when you open your mouth to speak. It is about the fear that sits quietly in your chest before a conversation begins. It is about training your brain to think in English instead of translating word by word. It is about learning how to keep speaking, even when a word refuses to come, without stopping, without giving up, without letting that small moment of silence destroy your confidence for the rest of the day. By the end of this episode, my friend, I want you to understand exactly why this happens inside your mind. And more importantly, I want you to walk away with real, practical tools that you can start using today, this very day, to stop this problem from controlling your speaking. So get comfortable, open your heart and your mind, and let's begin this journey together. The problem everyone faces. Let's talk honestly about where this problem shows up in real life, because I think when we see our own experience reflected in someone else's words, we feel less alone. And that feeling alone is powerful medicine for the soul. Think about the moment you are talking with your teacher, and they ask you a simple question. But suddenly, the word you need vanishes from your mind. Think about speaking with a friend, someone you feel comfortable with, and yet even there, your mind goes quiet at the wrong moment. Think about the terrifying feeling during a job interview, when your future, your career, your dreams feel like they depend on finding the right word at the right second, and it simply does not come. Think about an online meeting, with your camera on, with colleagues watching, and the silence stretches longer and longer while you search for a word that seems to be hiding from you on purpose. Think about speaking to a foreigner you just met, someone who does not speak your language, and you desperately want to connect with them, to build a bridge with words, but the bridge collapses in the middle. Think about an English speaking club, a place that should feel safe, and yet your heart still races when it is your turn to speak. In all of these situations, something very similar happens inside your mind. First, you feel a small spark of confidence. I know this word, you think. Then comes a pause. Wait, you say to yourself, quietly, internally. Then the panic begins. What is it? What is the word? And then, the hardest moment of all, your mind simply goes blank, completely empty. Like a room with no furniture, no light, nothing at all. After this happens, most learners feel a wave of difficult emotions. They feel nervous, their heart beats faster, their palms might even sweat a little. They feel embarrassed, especially if someone else noticed the silence. They feel frustrated, angry at themselves for forgetting something they should know. And they feel disappointed, wondering if they will ever speak this language fluently, wondering if all their hours of studying were wasted. But here, my friend, I need you to listen very closely, because this next part might change how you see yourself forever. Forgetting words does not mean you are bad at English. It does not mean your brain is broken. It does not mean you have failed. Even advanced speakers, people who have studied English for many, many years, forget words sometimes. Even native speakers, people who grew up speaking English their entire lives, people who never had to study grammar rules or vocabulary lists, they also forget words sometimes, right in the middle of a sentence, right in front of other people. This is not a sign of weakness. This is simply how the human brain works when it is under pressure, when emotions are involved, when we care about the outcome of a conversation. So please, take this pressure off your shoulders today. This is completely normal, and it is something we can work with together, step by step. Why do we forget words? Now let's go a little deeper, because understanding the reason behind a problem is often the first step toward solving it. When we understand why something happens, it stops feeling like a mystery, and it starts feeling like something we can actually manage. The first reason is stress and nervousness. When we become nervous, something interesting happens inside our brain. Our brain shifts its attention away from calm, organized thinking, and it focuses instead on fear, on danger, on protecting us. This is an ancient survival response, something our brains developed thousands of years ago to protect us from real physical danger, like a wild animal. But today, this same response gets triggered by something much smaller, like speaking English in front of someone. Imagine you are walking calmly, feeling relaxed, and suddenly a loud noise surprises you. In that moment, could you easily remember a difficult word? Probably not, because your brain is busy dealing with the surprise. Speaking in a stressful moment works in a very similar way. The second reason is trying to speak perfect English. So many learners carry a heavy belief inside their minds that says, "I must not make mistakes." This belief feels like it is helping you, like it is pushing you to be better. But in reality, it creates enormous pressure. And pressure, unfortunately, blocks memory instead of helping it. The harder you try to be perfect, the more your mind tightens up, like a fist clenching tighter and tighter, until nothing can move freely inside it anymore. The third reason is simply not using words often enough. Think of words like muscles in your body. If you go to the gym once and never return, your muscles do not stay strong. They slowly become weak again. Vocabulary works exactly the same way. If you learn a word today but never speak it, never use it in a real sentence, never say it out loud with your own mouth, that word slowly becomes weak in your memory, even if you once understood it perfectly. The fourth reason is memorizing instead of using. So many learners spend hours reading vocabulary lists, writing words on flashcards, highlighting words in books, but they never actually speak those words out loud in real conversations. Your brain remembers much more powerfully through action, through use, through real experience, rather than through passive reading. Reading a word is like watching someone ride a bicycle. Speaking a word is like actually riding the bicycle yourself. Only one of these truly teaches your body, or in this case, your brain, how to do something. The fifth reason is translating from your native language. When you think of an idea in your native language first, and then try to translate it into English inside your head, your brain has to do double work. It searches for the idea, and then it searches again for the English words to express that same idea, almost like running two races at the same time. This slows everything down, and often, somewhere in that translation process, the word gets lost completely. The sixth reason is thinking too fast. Sometimes, your ideas move faster than your English ability can keep up with. Your mind is full of interesting thoughts, complex feelings, detailed opinions, but your English vocabulary and grammar cannot move at the same speed yet. It is like trying to pour a large amount of water through a small opening. Some of it spills, some of it gets lost along the way. Understanding these 6 reasons is so important, because now, instead of blaming yourself and feeling like something is wrong with you, you can see clearly that this is simply how learning a language works for every human being. And once we understand the problem clearly, we can start building real solutions. I also want you to notice something interesting, something that connects all 6 of these reasons together, like invisible threads. Notice how almost every single one of them involves some kind of pressure, whether it is the pressure of nervousness, the pressure of wanting to be perfect, the pressure of translating quickly enough, or the pressure of thinking faster than your English can move. Pressure, my friend, is very often the true enemy hiding behind the words "I forgot." It is rarely a true lack of knowledge. Most of the time, the word you forgot is actually still there, somewhere inside your mind, sitting quietly, waiting patiently. But pressure has temporarily closed the door between your memory and your mouth. This understanding alone can bring so much relief, because it means the problem is not that you do not know enough English. The problem is that, in that specific moment, pressure closed a door that is usually open. And doors that can close under pressure can also be trained to stay open, gently, with practice, patience, and the right tools, which is exactly what the rest of this episode will give you. How memory works when speaking. Let's take a moment now to explore something truly fascinating about how memory actually works. Because I promise you, once you understand this, speaking will start to feel less mysterious and much more manageable. There is a big difference between recognizing a word, remembering a word, and using a word. Let me explain this with an example from everyday life. Imagine you see a friend's face in a crowd of people. You recognize that face immediately, without any effort at all. Your brain says, "Yes, I know this person." But now imagine trying to remember their name. Sometimes, even though you clearly recognize the face, the name simply does not come to your mind, even though you have known this person for years. This happens to almost everyone at some point, and it feels strange because we assume that if we recognize something, we should also be able to name it instantly. But recognition and recall are actually two very different mental processes, and words in a foreign language work in exactly the same way. This brings us to a very important concept called active vocabulary versus passive vocabulary. Passive vocabulary means words you understand when you read them or hear them, but you cannot easily produce them yourself when speaking. You look at the word and you think, "Yes, I know this word," but if someone asked you to use it in a sentence right now, without preparation, you might struggle. Active vocabulary, on the other hand, means words that live so deeply inside your mind that you can use them naturally and instantly while speaking, without stopping to think, without searching, without hesitation. Here is the truth, my friend, and this is the real goal of everything we're discussing today. Most English learners have a huge passive vocabulary, sometimes thousands of words, but a much smaller, active vocabulary. This is exactly why you can understand movies, songs, and articles fairly well, but when it is your turn to speak, everything suddenly feels so much harder. The words are there, somewhere inside your mind, but they have not yet moved into that active, ready-to-use part of your brain. And this is exactly the goal of today's episode. We are not just trying to help you learn more words. We are trying to help you move the words you already know from that quiet, passive storage room in your mind into the active, confident, ready-to-speak part of your brain. The biggest mistakes English learners make. Before we move into practical solutions, I want to gently point out some common mistakes, not to make you feel bad, but because recognizing these patterns in ourselves is often the beginning of real, lasting change. The first mistake is memorizing hundreds of words instead of truly mastering a smaller number of them. Many learners feel proud when they can recognize a huge number of words, but they forget that 20 words used confidently and naturally are far more valuable in real conversation than 200 words that only exist in a notebook. The second mistake is studying constantly but rarely speaking. Grammar books, vocabulary apps, video lessons, all of these things are wonderful and helpful. But if you only ever study silently, alone, without ever opening your mouth and speaking out loud, your brain never gets the chance to practice the actual physical and mental skill of speaking. It is a little like reading many books about swimming, but never actually entering the water. The third mistake is stopping completely every time a word is forgotten. When learners forget a word, many of them freeze, apologize repeatedly, and lose their entire train of thought, sometimes even ending the conversation early because of embarrassment. This single habit, more than almost anything else, damages confidence over time. The fourth mistake is feeling deeply embarrassed about small mistakes. So many learners believe that forgetting a word makes them look foolish in front of others, when in reality, most people barely notice, and those who do notice usually feel warmth and respect for someone brave enough to keep trying in a foreign language. The fifth mistake is giving up too quickly, either in a single conversation or in the entire language learning journey. Some learners quit speaking practice altogether because it feels too uncomfortable, too frustrating, too slow. But my friend, Please remember this. Every single fluent speaker you admire today once stood exactly where you are standing right now, forgetting words, feeling nervous, wanting to give up. The only real difference between them and someone who never becomes fluent is that they continued, even on the difficult days. Practical ways to stop forgetting words. Now we arrive at the heart of today's episode, the part I am most excited to share with you, because these are not just theories. These are real, practical tools you can start using in your very next conversation. The first tip is to use new words in real sentences, not just in isolation. Instead of simply memorizing the word decision, try building a full sentence around it. Something personal and meaningful to your own life, like, I need to make a decision about my future job. When a word is connected to a real sentence, and even better, to a real feeling or situation from your own life, it becomes far easier for your brain to hold on to it. The second tip is to speak every single day, even if it is only for 5 minutes. Consistency matters far more than duration. Speaking for 5 focused minutes daily will help your brain far more than speaking for 2 hours once a month. 5 minutes might feel small, almost insignificant. But these small daily moments slowly build a strong foundation, much like small drops of water eventually filling an entire glass. The third tip is to repeat words in different situations and different sentences. Instead of using a new word only once and moving on, try using that same word again later in the day in a completely different sentence, in a different context. This repetition, especially when it happens in varied situations, helps transform a fragile, passive memory into a strong, active one. The fourth tip is to learn word groups instead of single, isolated words. Instead of only memorizing the word decision by itself, learn the full expression, make a decision. Instead of just learning break, learn take a break. Instead of just learning attention, learn pay attention. These natural word combinations, which we often call collocations, are how English truly flows in real conversation, and learning them together makes both words easier to recall at the same time. The fifth tip is to practice thinking in English throughout your day, even about small, simple things. While you are making your morning coffee, try silently describing the process in English inside your head. While you are walking somewhere, try describing what you see around you in English. This habit slowly reduces your dependence on translation, which, as we discussed earlier, is one of the biggest reasons words get lost during real conversations. The sixth tip, and this one is truly powerful, is learning how to describe a word when you forget it, instead of simply stopping and staying silent. For example, if you forget the word umbrella, instead of freezing in silence, you could simply say, "It's something you use when it rains." This single skill alone can transform your entire speaking experience, because it keeps the conversation flowing naturally, even when a specific word temporarily escapes you. The seventh tip is to tell short stories, even very simple ones, about your day or your life. Stories naturally use a wide variety of vocabulary, and because stories carry emotional meaning and personal connection, they tend to stick in memory far more deeply than random, disconnected word lists. The eighth tip is to read aloud regularly, using your own voice, not just your eyes. Reading aloud strengthens the physical connection between your brain, your mouth, and the sounds of English, training your mind and your body to work together as a single, unified speaking system. The ninth tip is something called shadowing, where you listen to native speakers and repeat what they say almost immediately afterward, copying their rhythm, their pronunciation, and their natural flow. This beautiful technique trains your brain and your mouth to move together more naturally and more quickly. The 10th tip is to review your old vocabulary regularly. Not just learn new words constantly without looking back. Just like a garden needs regular care, even after the seeds have grown, your vocabulary needs gentle, regular attention to stay strong, healthy, and ready to use. I want to add one more layer to all of these tips, because I think it is important for you to understand why they work so well together, rather than seeing them as 10 separate, disconnected pieces of advice. Each of these tips shares one common goal, which is to move a word out of quiet, passive storage and into active, living memory. The kind of memory that responds instantly when you need it in a real conversation. Think about how a small child learns their first language. They do not sit with a notebook, writing lists of words to memorize. They hear a word. They try to say it. They get it wrong. Someone gently corrects them, and they try again, over and over, in real situations, with real people, with real emotions attached to the moment. This is exactly the kind of learning we are trying to recreate for you as an adult learner. Except now you have the added advantage of understanding grammar, structure, and meaning far more consciously than a small child ever could. So please, do not see these tips as extra homework to add to an already busy life. See them instead as small, gentle doors that you can walk through one at a time, at your own pace, whenever you have a few spare minutes in your day. What to do when you forget a word during conversation? Even with all of this beautiful preparation, there will still be moments, my friend, real moments in real conversations, when a word simply does not come. And this is perfectly okay, because today, I want to give you real phrases, real tools that you can use in that exact moment, so that instead of freezing in painful silence, you can keep the conversation flowing gracefully and confidently. You can simply say, "I don't remember the word, but let me explain." You can say, "It's similar to," and then describe something close in meaning. You can say, "It's something that," and continue describing the object, feeling, or idea using words you already know well. You can even say honestly and warmly, "The word isn't coming to my mind right now," which is completely natural, and something even native speakers say regularly in daily life. I want you to understand something deeply important here, something I truly hope touches your heart today. Communication is far more important than perfect vocabulary. The people you are speaking with almost always care much more about connecting with you, understanding you, and being understood by you than they care about whether you used one single perfect word. Confidence, my friend, matters more than perfection. A person who keeps speaking warmly and naturally, even while occasionally searching for words, will always connect more deeply with others than a person who stays silent, waiting anxiously for perfect English that may never come. Daily habits that improve your speaking memory. Let's build together a simple, gentle daily routine, something realistic that you can actually follow, even with a busy life full of work, family, and responsibilities. In the morning, try spending just a few quiet minutes thinking in English, perhaps while drinking your coffee or tea. describing your simple plans for the day ahead. In the afternoon, take a small moment to learn just 5 new words. Not 50, not 100, simply 5 meaningful words that you can truly focus on and absorb. In the evening, speak out loud for 5 minutes, even if you are completely alone, even if it feels a little strange at first, describing your day, your feelings, your thoughts. And at night before you sleep, take a few gentle minutes to review words you have learned recently, allowing your brain the chance to quietly organize and strengthen these memories while you rest. I want you to understand something important here, something that applies not only to English, but truly to almost everything meaningful in life. Consistency wins over intensity every single time. A small, steady flame that burns gently every day will eventually create more warmth and light than one huge fire that burns brightly for a single moment and then disappears completely. A short, real-life story. Now, my friend, I want to share a story with you because I truly believe that stories touch our hearts in ways that simple advice sometimes cannot. There was once a learner, much like you and me, who struggled deeply with forgetting words. Every single conversation felt like walking through fog, uncertain, anxious, afraid of the silence that might come at any moment. This person avoided speaking opportunities whenever possible, choosing silence over the fear of embarrassment, choosing to stay quiet in meetings, quiet with friends, quiet even when they had so much they truly wanted to say. But slowly, gently, this person began to change their approach. They started speaking just a little every single day, even alone in their room, even when no one else was listening. They stopped punishing themselves harshly for every forgotten word, and instead, they gently learned to describe things when a word disappeared from their mind. They stopped memorizing endless vocabulary lists in silence, and instead, they began using new words immediately, right after learning them, in real, simple sentences about their own life. Over time, something beautiful began to happen. The silences became shorter. The confidence grew stronger. Conversations that once felt terrifying began to feel possible, and eventually, even enjoyable. This person did not become perfect, my friend, and I want to be honest with you about that, because perfection was never truly the goal. But they became confident, they became capable, and most importantly, they became someone who no longer allowed fear to keep them silent. I share this story with you today because I want you to see yourself somewhere inside it. Wherever you are right now in your own journey, whatever silences you have experienced, whatever embarrassment you have felt, please know that change is truly possible, one small, gentle step at a time. What I love most about this story is how ordinary it truly is. This was not a genius, not someone with a special gift for languages, not someone who suddenly discovered a secret trick that no one else knew about. This was simply someone who decided, quietly and privately, to stop waiting for confidence to arrive on its own, and instead started building confidence with small, repeated actions, day after day, even on days when motivation was low, even on days when a conversation went badly, and old fears whispered that maybe giving up would be easier. If this person's story feels far away from your own life right now, I want you to remember that every fluent speaker's story once felt exactly the same distance away from where they were standing. The gap between where you are today and where you want to be is not crossed in one giant leap. It is crossed one small sentence at a time, one small 5-minute practice session at a time, one small moment of choosing to keep speaking instead of falling silent. Simple Speaking Challenge for Listeners. Now, my friend, I want to invite you to actually participate today, right now. Not just listen quietly, because real growth happens through action, not just through listening. I want you to choose one simple topic, perhaps describing your room, or describing today's weather outside your window, or describing what you had for breakfast this morning. Then, I want you to speak out loud in English, completely alone if you need to, for just 1 full minute without stopping. And here is the most important part of this entire challenge. If you forget a word during that minute, do not stop. Do not go silent. Simply explain it in another way, using the tools we discussed earlier today, and keep moving forward, keep speaking, keep going. This simple challenge, though it may feel small, is actually incredibly powerful, because it trains your brain and your confidence at exactly the same time, in real, practical conditions, similar to real conversation. Final motivation and encouragement. As we come close to the end of our time together today, I want to speak directly to your heart for a moment, my friend, because I truly care about your journey, more than you might realize. Please remember, forgetting words is normal. It happens to learners, and it happens to native speakers, too. Improvement takes time, real time, sometimes slower than we wish, sometimes faster than we expect, but always moving forward as long as we keep trying. Please do not compare yourself harshly to others, because every single person is walking their own unique path, at their own unique pace, shaped by their own unique life circumstances. Every conversation you have, even the difficult ones, even the ones filled with silence and searching, trains your brain a little more. Every mistake you make teaches you something valuable, something you could not have learned any other way. Every single sentence you speak, even an imperfect one, makes you stronger than you were before you spoke it. Progress, my friend, is always more important than perfection, and I hope you carry this truth with you long after this episode ends. I also want you to think, just for a moment, about how far you have already come. Somewhere in your past, you did not know any English words at all. Then, slowly, one word at a time, one lesson at a time, one conversation at a time, you built the knowledge you carry inside you today. The very fact that you are here, listening to this episode, trying to understand these ideas in English, already proves something wonderful about you. It proves that you are someone who keeps showing up, someone who keeps trying, someone who refuses to let fear have the final word. That quality inside you, that quiet determination, is far more valuable than any single vocabulary word could ever be, because it is the very thing that will carry you all the way to fluency, even on the days when the words themselves feel far away. Thank you so much, from the bottom of my heart, for spending this time with me today on Code Your English. Every minute you spend here, learning, growing, and pushing yourself gently forward means so much to me, and I truly hope it means something meaningful to you as well. I want to encourage you, gently but firmly, to actually practice today's techniques, not just remember them as interesting ideas. Try the challenge we discussed. Try describing a word instead of stopping in silence. Try speaking for just 5 minutes today, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. I would love to hear from you, truly. Please share with our community which tip helped you the most today, and tell us honestly, what words do you often forget yourself? Your story might be exactly what another listener needs to hear today, so please don't be shy about sharing it. And please join me again for our next episode here on Code Your English, where we will continue this beautiful journey together, one word, one sentence, one conversation at a time. Remember, my dear friend, every word you speak makes your English stronger. Even the imperfect ones, even the hesitant ones, even the ones wrapped in a little bit of fear. Don't be afraid of forgetting words. Keep speaking, keep learning, and little by little, gently and surely, the words will come to you naturally, just like an old friend returning home. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself, keep practicing with love and patience, and have a truly wonderful day. Goodbye for now, and thank you for being part of Code Your English community.